You learned the room before you learned to talk. You watched how people laughed before you laughed. You studied the pause before someone spoke, the half second where everyone else seemed to already know what to do. And you were translating, in real time, a language you were never handed. You've been doing this since you were a kid. Sitting in a classroom, a family dinner, a birthday party, watching everyone move through the moment like it came naturally to them. While you were one step behind, calculating, not because you were slow, because you were running on a different frequency, and you had to convert everything into a signal the room could receive. People called you quiet, sensitive. Too much, or not enough, depending on the day. Old for your age, even as a child. You've heard you think too much more times than you can count, usually from people who never once had to think their way through a room you walked into without a map. You're not broken. You were never miscalibrated. You were built on a different number than the room around you was built on. Let's name what that's actually cost you, because nobody else will. It's exhausting to translate yourself all day, every day, into a language other people get for free. To watch a conversation happen and have to decide consciously how much of yourself fits inside it. To leave gatherings replaying everything you said, wondering if you performed normal well enough. That's not insecurity. That's the tax you've been paying for years without anyone telling you there was a tax at all. And here's what changes everything. This isn't a personality quirk. It isn't something a therapist invented a label for last decade. It was written into you the day you were born, encoded in the exact sequence of your birth date, the one combination of numbers that has never belonged to anyone else the way it belongs to you. Numerology doesn't explain your personality. It explains your frequency. And once you see your frequency on paper, the feeling of being different stops being a wound and starts being a fact you can finally work with. Here's the layer almost nobody gets told. When your birth date is reduced, added down, digit by digit, the way every numerologist calculates a life path, most people land cleanly on a single number, 1 through 9. A clear signal. Their frequency resolves. Some people don't resolve. Their numbers add up to 11 or 22 or 33, and numerology stops the reduction right there. It refuses to collapse those numbers down to a single digit because they're not meant to simplify. They're called master numbers, and if your birth date carries one, this is the first real answer for why you've never felt like you were running on the same channel as everyone else. An 11 isn't a 1. It's a 2 carrying double voltage. Intuition turned up past the level most people can comfortably hold. A 22 isn't a 4. It's the builder number amplified into someone who can sense the architecture of an entire future before anyone else even sees the blueprint. A 33 isn't a 6. It's love and responsibility raised to a pitch most people spend their whole life learning to even approach. You weren't given a simpler number because you weren't built for a simpler life. You were given 2 frequencies running at once, and you've spent your whole life trying to live like you only had one. That's why you translate. That's why you're early to notice what others are late to feel. That's why a room can feel loud to you in ways no one else seems to register. You're not malfunctioning. You're receiving on a bandwidth most rooms aren't built to carry. But amplification was never free, and you already know that better than anyone. Carrying 2 frequencies means you feel things at a depth most people never have to manage. And you've had to learn, alone, how to live inside that without a manual. No one told you, when you were 9 years old crying over something small, that you weren't overreacting. You were simply receiving a signal at its full intensity while everyone around you got the muted version. That isolation is real. The sense of being unreadable to people who love you, the way you can be in a crowded room and still feel like the only one who's actually awake. That's not a flaw in your character. That's the literal cost of carrying a number the rest of the room isn't built to hold. You've spent years thinking the work was to make yourself smaller, to round yourself down into a number that would fit more easily. But here's the layer that changes the entire story. You were never supposed to resolve. The reason numerology refuses to collapse your number into something simpler is the same reason you've never been able to collapse yourself into something simpler, no matter how hard you tried. You're not the version of you that fits the room. You're the version that's meant to change what the room can hold. People with master number energy aren't built to assimilate. They're built to bridge between what is and what's coming, between the practical and the intuitive, between the world as everyone else accepts it and the world as it's about to become. That's not a burden disguised as a gift. It's a gift that happens to come with a burden attached, and you've been carrying the burden alone because no one ever showed you the gift underneath it. You're not too much. You were never too much. You were exactly the amount the moment you're walking toward is going to need. The feeling you've had since you were small, that you're seeing something the room hasn't caught up to yet, that wasn't your imagination. That was your number, doing exactly what it was encoded to do. And this is just one layer of you. Your life path is one piece of a much larger map. The way you love, the way you make decisions, the way you handle money, the version of you that shows up under pressure. All of it is sitting inside the rest of your birth date, waiting to be decoded the same way this one number just was. That's what Soul Code does. It takes your complete birth date, every digit, every layer, and turns it into your full numerological map, narrated back to you in your own story. So you stop guessing at who you are and finally hear it laid out in full. You already know one truth about yourself today. Imagine what the rest of the map says.